Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Crypto Analyst here, and I hope all of you guys are having a good morning, evening, wherever you guys are from, and welcome back to another Bitcoin technical analysis. And Bitcoin could be getting ready for a very large move, and the reason for this is actually this impending death cross that is so close to happening on this one-day time scale. And if you guys know anything about these death crosses or golden crosses that happen on the one-day time scale of Bitcoin, then you guys know that they have a very significant impact on the price action of Bitcoin. I mean, we've seen them move Bitcoin anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 towards both the up and the downside, depending on whether it's a golden cross or a death cross. If we go back just a little bit, we can see that at the last death cross, Bitcoin went from around $4,000 all the way up to nearly $14,000. And if we go back to the last death cross, we can see that Bitcoin went all the way from around $9,000 all the way around to $3,000. So definitely a very large impact in correlation as to when these death crosses happen and when these golden crosses happen. I mean, they are definitely trendsetters for Bitcoin. Now, we have seen fake outs before. If we go back to the 4-hour time scale, which again isn't quite as significant as the one day, but we saw a very similar situation play out. We actually had this death cross, and what looked like it was going to reverse into a golden cross actually faked out. Now, this happened twice. And of course, following this, it led to a nice nasty dump in the price action of Bitcoin. But it is possible for these guys to fake out. And while it's nothing that I am betting on or nothing that I think is probable, it is possible for these golden cross and these death crosses to get counteracted. So if you are a bull in this area, you really are hoping, and let's go ahead and move back to this one-day chart, you really are hoping that this is actually going to be counteracted, much like we saw on the 4-hour golden cross. You're kind of hoping that this is actually going to be a one-day death cross. You know, what you're really hoping for here is that it actually falls apart, this reverses, and is just a giant bear trap. Now, whether or not that's going to be the case is still kind of up to see. Again, it's not something that I'm betting on. We've seen that in the past, the 200 EMA has yet to be broken on the 4-hour time scale and on the one-day time scale. So a very heavy EMA, and if we go over and we highlight this, we see 3 rejection candles, 1 piercing candle, but for the most part, this is 3 different rejections, technically 4 if you want to count this guy as well, from this 200 EMA on the one-day time scale. And if we move back to the 4-hour time scale, we can see that just, the exact same problem. This 200 EMA has just been resistance ever since that ever since it broke below it. So with this happening over here, again, a rejection over in here, trying to even get close over here, not even being able to hit it. This is definitely not an ideal situation for Bitcoin moving forward, at least not from the bulls. So moving back from this one-day chart, or moving back rather to this one-day chart, I want to express a little bit of my thoughts now that I've kind of explained why this is such a crucial area for Bitcoin and why it has to hold here. Again, if this death cross happens, I think that it is going to be solidifying that really that Bitcoin could continue downwards for at least a couple thousand more dollars. I mean, when this stuff happens on the one-day chart, it very rarely just does like one of these little baby crossovers and then comes right back up. Usually when this happens, it's months of trending down following this decision. Again, we've seen this in the past. Last time this happened, we death crossed over here, faked out even. And even since the fake out, I mean, this went from all the way from May until December. So around a 6-month trend, maybe even a little bit more than that. Same thing happened over here. Golden cross went from April all the way to August. So I would say that if this death cross does happen over in here, at least probably another 6 months of the downside to Bitcoin. I don't want this to sound like some sort of weather forecast, but there is a significant impact and correlation as to when these happen and the months that follow them. And in past, it was years, but and what I mean by that, let's go ahead and explain that actually a little bit, because if we go over towards the past of Bitcoin, we can see that when it had a golden cross over here, it was quite literally years to the upside, because I believe this happened over here in late 2015, early 2016, we had a golden cross, and Bitcoin quite literally continued in an upwards trend line for years without having a death cross. Now, of course, back in 2017, or rather in 2018, when it had this death cross, it continued downwards for about 7 to 8 months. And then we had our golden cross, which continued upwards for around 6 months. And now we're about to be at, really one of the next death crosses in Bitcoin's history, because this does not happen a lot, which is another reason that it's just so impactful and so important that you at least acknowledge its existence without kind of just tossing it to the side. Because this really has only happened a couple times in the history of Bitcoin. So with this being one of the few times that it has happened, you need to take note of it. People thought it was a joke back in here. They didn't care about it, and they kind of threw it off to the side. So this is something that I am looking at and studying, along with the EMAs in here. So with the EMAs making these golden crosses and death crosses, it's one of the things that I've said is one of the most influential factors in Bitcoin where it's at right now. If you don't have these EMAs on here, or you don't have some sort of moving averages, I think you're quite honestly putting yourself at a disadvantage from a trading perspective, because they have been so influential, correlating with the price action of Bitcoin, that you're missing out by not having them. Now, I'm not giving legal or financial or tax advice in any way, saying that you should use these for trading, but let's just go ahead and take a look. I mean, they've played, again, death crossover in here, double fake out, screaming, hey, this is a bull trap. The price tanks. What happens? Well, we actually see an extremely clear form of rejection and resistance from this 50 EMA on the 4-hour time scale until it breaks above it, uses it as support. We have a break, hook, and then go scenario. And the reason, and really the place that it goes right up to, is this 200 EMA. Sees a nice rejection way. It comes back to where support is, which is now former resistance, now turned support, the 200 EMA. Broke below it, kept using it as resistance. Now we broke back above it, and we are using it as support. Now, whether or not the support holds, again, going to be something that we're just going to have to wait and see. The heart line of this channel is moving downwards, and so just by moving sideways, we are approaching upper resistance being the top of this channel and the 200 EMA. So my thoughts on Bitcoin moving forward is that, one, it's on low volume right now. We can see that from support and resistance, and from these EMAs, it's getting squeezed yet again. And I know that's not something that a lot of people want to hear, but with the price action of Bitcoin being squeezed like this, it's now being squeezed from the 1-day time scale on a death cross squeeze. It's now being squeezed on the EMAs from the 4-hour time scale. It's being squeezed from support and resistance on just the candle chart itself. And then now it's also being squeezed on the volume. So yet another squeeze happening on Bitcoin. And it's a very odd scenario because we have this long period of consolidation happening with really kind of no influential move of any kind happening. Yes, we did have this range breaking for a brief moment in time, but we saw this rejection wick and how large it was, and of course the price moving back down towards the downside from that. So with Bitcoin actually continuing over here, of course I do have some support lines and some resistance lines drawn up, but I think the most influential factor that I would be aware of is going to be this 1-day death cross. And if this happens, I would certainly keep my eyes open because this wouldn't be a bullish thing. If I know we kind of have been trying to talk about these bullish arguments, trying to get myself bullish about this, again, this nice falling channel, we've acknowledged the fact that this thing could come all the way back down towards the low 5,000s if it wants to touch the bottom of this channel again. Even if it wants to touch the heart line, we're talking low 7,000s, which is still about an $1,100 drop from where it's currently at. Something that probably a lot of us don't want to see unless we want to accumulate more, or really unless we want to short it, but still just a lot of room for Bitcoin to move around in here towards both the up and the downside. I think that it's certainly looking more bearish now. Again, just the amount of rejections from the 200 EMA on the 4-hour, the 200 EMA on the 1-day chart, the impending death cross, the sideways movement, the lack of volume, they're all not creating this thing that's just telling me that this is a bullish outcome over here. It looks like there's actually even a pennant forming, and of course this would be just a breakdown, then a pennant forming, which would lead me to think that this is actually a continuation in the price action, and that this would actually just be a continuation pattern towards the downside. The EMAs are both pointing downwards right now on the 1-day and on the 4-hour time scale. And while some of the larger time scales like the 3-day, the 1 week, and the 1 month are all looking a little bit more bullish, these short-term time scales, guys, I say short-term, loosely. The 1-day and the 4-hour time scales, which are the ones that I use the most, are definitely not looking the most bullish as of right now. Again, all those things that I just previously listed already, I don't want to kind of reiterate myself, or I don't want to ramble, but there are certainly a lack of bullish divergent, or whatever you guys want to call that, in this area over here. There's definitely a lack of bullish signs for me, in my opinion, and so for that reason, I'm actually being very, very careful, watching this very closely on Bitcoin. And while there hasn't been too much to talk about because of the sideways movement, there is certainly something extremely significant to watch, being this death cross. So if you aren't watching this death cross and you're very heavily invested in Bitcoin, I would recommend at least keeping an eye on it. Not saying that it should impact your decisions in any way, but keep an eye on this death cross. We've seen what it's done in the past and what it could very well do in the future. So that's just my thoughts, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy this video and this update about what I'm watching. And that's kind of like what I want this to be, is me explaining these market influencing factors and what I'm watching, because sometimes that is things like the RSI and the MACD, or sometimes it's just support and resistance, or formations, or falling channels, or other times it's like today where it's the EMAs. And really more so the last week or even the last month, it has been these EMAs just being these influential factors on the candle chart itself. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this. Hopefully it is. If it did, guys, let me know in the comment section below. Drop a like. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you guys want to join the Discord, there's a link for that in the description down below as well. Completely free, no strings attached. I think you just might have to create an account in Discord, but it's very, very simple. So if you guys have any questions on this or want to talk to me about this at all, leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'd love to be able to chat with you guys about this, and let me know whether you guys think whether or not this I almost said this bear cross, this death cross is going to happen. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.